Hey everyone, good afternoon. I am so happy today to get on to discuss step 3 in recovery. Step 3 is what closes the foundation to our recovery. And I see Rivkie is requesting us. Give us a minute. Let me wait. Let's see if Rivkie made it on. Hold on. Oh, we got it.
Hello.
Hey Rivkie. I
How are
am
you?
so happy that I'm so grateful every time someone accepts my offer um, and wants to join our live. Just to start, before we get into who you are and why I invited you here and how awesome you are, I just want to give a intro to anybody that's getting on here and has no clue what you're doing. My name is Estee, and I am a life coach, and I'm committed to helping and serving women that are impacted by addiction. Um, Recovery, there are 12 steps, which is part of recovery, and I love working through the 12 steps. I give workshops on the 12 steps, I coach one on one, and I find 12 steps to be just the best way of living. Step 3 is the step that sort of closes the foundation of the 12-step recovery work. It's the chunk that supports all other parts in recovery. And I feel that for anybody that wants to get into the 12-step recovery work, these are the three most important steps to focus and relearn and redo and practice and practice and practice, because as much as we practice, I still need to practice. Like, I feel like today we're talking about step 3, and today God was like, let's see, Estee. Let's see, let me test you. And I'm like, God, now because I'm talking about step 3, do I want to be tested today on step 3? And I am slowly breathing. I am breathing and letting go of whatever I thought was right for me today. Because what I thought was right for me today and what turned out was really, really, really epically different. So I'm so happy to be here, and I'm so happy to get you into step 3. Um, I don't want to waste too much time to go through step 1 and 2, but step 3, just to give you a small snippet. Step 1 is all about I can't, being powerless. Step 2 is all about God can, my higher power can. And step 3 is actually about so let him. If I know someone else can, and I know someone else is supporting me and knows best, let me hand it over. And step 3 is all about letting go and surrendering and choosing to surrender over and over again, because every time we do it doesn't happen automatically. It's every time it's a choice again. And that's why step 3 starts with the words made a decision, because even the words made a decision has two parts. One is I can decide, I can make a decision, and I can sit with a decision and do nothing about the decision.
Yeah.
Which, brings me to a joke that someone once says, like, three frogs sitting on a leaf. One decides to jump down. How many are sitting on the leaf? What's the answer?
Three frogs. Say it again. I was
Three
trying to block the
frogs
sunlight.
sitting on a leaf. One decides to jump down. How many are sitting on the leaf?
Maybe still three?
Yeah, exactly. Because I
Because you
can
didn't actually do
make a
it.
decision to turn my will over to the care of God, but it doesn't mean I actually am. And that's the work of step 3, of not just
Mm,
making the decision, but actually doing the work. And that's why it's the end of the foundation, because it's like, I understand I can't, I understand someone can, and now let me go and let that person. Let me
mm,
surrender. Let me let go. And
hmm
how much better and how much more freedom and peace and a sense of relief can I bring into my life by actually letting go and handing over? So
Yeah.
that was like a 2 minute on step three. I love to take 5 hours on step three because I think it's so magnificent and has so much in there. Um, but to begin, Rivki, if you can give a 2 minute intro to who you are, um, what's your passion, what's your lifestyle like, so we could understand of like, hey, Estee, like, why are you going live with Rivki on step three?
Yeah, and I also wanted to add, and I assume you've probably mentioned this in the past, like when someone hears this, they might be like, well, I'm not impacted by addiction, and they might think that it's irrelevant. But these are principles that are like, they're relevant for life. They're for all of us, you know? So even if you feel like, well, that's not relevant to me, like, stick around, you know?
Yeah. And I always say, like, find me women that want to do the 12 steps that are not impacted by addiction because it is a
Right.
way of living that is just superior of the regular. It's unbelievable. But we'll talk about that if anybody else wants to reach out and be like, should I do the 12 steps? We'll go there. But yeah, thanks, Ricky, for bringing that um, up and making everyone aware of that.
Yeah, sure. Who am I? Whoa, that's like a big question, you know? Like whenever someone asks that kind of question, I'm like, whoa, thanks for the invitation to like just pause and like, wait, who am I? Okay. It's like the instinct is kind of to say, well, I'm a coach and I'm a mother, but like that's just like the outside. Like, who am I? So I don't know if I'll have like the most polished answer, but I'm just gonna see what comes up. Um, I guess I would say that I am someone who is deeply committed to authenticity in my life. And therefore, when challenges came my way, over the years, and especially in the last 2 years, I approach those challenges in ways that maybe are not so common. Because just authenticity and is just like so important to me. And um, I guess I've been willing to do some pretty awesome stuff, and I'm feeling very grateful about it at this point in my life. There were many years before that which were filled with lots of despair and anxiety and fear about my future and the future of my family. And many years, I always say, like, if you would look at my journal from the first 10, 11 years of raising children, my journal was such a depressing place to be, because that's really what my life was full of, a lot of despair and self-judgment. Um, and it's been evolving, and it looks different now, you know?
Thank God.
Um, yeah. And now I've become so honored and committed to sharing what has benefited me in my life with anyone who feels like it's right for them. And that looks a lot like cultivating a deep sense of trust in ourselves as mothers, as individuals, and also cultivating a deep sense of trust in our children. Um, and what that looks like. There's so much to go into on that, but when we're able to do that, things really, really shift. It releases a lot of tension and anxiety, and it makes space for great stuff like joy and connection and laughter and fun. And that's
Yes,
pretty awesome. So,
that's amazing.
yeah.
Um, and if we can jump right into our first question, the first question would be is like, what did letting go look to you like? And what is an example that people can understand? Like, what are major things you've let go of that only by doing that were you able to see the beauty and the peace? Because as long as you are holding on to the judgment and the fear and the anxiety and the what if and the what if and the what if, there's no after
Mhm.
the what if. It's all about what ifs, right? But once you
Mhm.
break that cycle and you're like, I do mine, and then I take that and I hand it over to God. And I'm like, God, from here on, it's yours. what did you actually create for yourself, and what was it like?
Yeah. The first example that popped into my head was, um, so I started homeschooling my children 2 years ago. Now, this year, a few of my children are in a school, um, but some of them are still at home. And so, and the principals, even though I practically, some of the kids are practically in a school setting, but the principles and ideas of homeschooling still really, really infuse my home. So, for example, part of the way I chose to homeschool was in a very, you could say, in a very child-led way, and kind of like not insisting that they need to learn something at the pace that I decided was right for them, but really trusting their pace and their process. Now, that could feel scary because the whole world says, well, what do you mean? Kids have to know this by first grade and that by second grade and this by third grade. And if they don't know all of that by 12th grade, God knows what's going to happen to them. And I don't know. Sometimes the thing that has most led me to lean into trust has been recognizing what's unsustainable. And I've recognized so many things as unsustainable or unhealthy or unhelpful to the family or to the child's growth or to my well-being. And when I recognize something as unsustainable, it's kind of like I take it as information, like Hashem is telling me, you don't need to, that's not a route you need to take. I can trust my wisdom that if I see that, being down my kid's back to cover their math work at this and this pace is going to be counterproductive in the long run, I can trust that intuition of that knowing that this is just not really going to help. That it's kind of like information that Hashem is providing me about what's necessary and what's not necessary right now. Or if I'm, in the midst of some sort of very intense conflict with a child or my husband that is starting to no longer be about the conflict, but is becoming hurtful to the relationship. That's another example of something that'll be like, wait, that's information for me that I don't need to be taking this many steps in this conflict. I can step back now. It's kind of like, I feel like it's like a road and it's like telling me like which routes are not safe to take. And if it's not safe to take, then I don't have to go that way. It's fine. So I just, really seeing that, pushing my children to follow a certain pace in their learning would be unsustainable and unhelpful. And I've learned to trust myself and to know that, like, I know that that's not going to help them in their learning and when they get older and what I really want for them in their future. And so now I get to trust that when they need those skills, they'll figure it out. And I don't need to worry about supplying all the skills now. That's
Yes.
just a
Yeah.
very easy example, and I'm sure it's something that we all relate to, and especially if our kids are in school and the schools are like, well, your kid isn't learning this and your kid isn't learning that. And it kind of could be like, oh my gosh, but you know what? Guess what? We can be the ones to come back and say, you know what? That's okay. I'm okay if my child doesn't cover this right now. I know that when he's going to need it, he'll be able to master it.
Right. And that brings me to the next question, which is when you are in a state of letting go and surrendering and trusting that what is actually happening is exactly what's meant to happen, what does it create in your life? Because I know what it creates in my life. Like, I'm just curious,
Yeah.
if someone like what are you able to access that you wouldn't be able to access if you're down their back to finish the math homework?
Yes, 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 exactly. That's like the cherry on top. This is the cherry on top. Like, just a short insight. Like I said, the first 10, 11 years of raising my children, I was following the very mainstream old school model of parenting, very authoritarian, if you will, and based on like reward and punishment. And I know better. I'm the authority and you will listen to me no matter what. And, let me tell you that 95% of our time was filled with tension and conflict and everything like that. Now, in the last 5 years, when we really shifted and we let go of that and replaced it with connection and love and so on and so forth, Now, I won't go as far to say it's 95% of our time is fun, but there's still challenges, but there's no question that so much more of the time and the energy in the home is just freed up now to be filled with laughter and silliness and fun and connection. And that applies in general, I would say. Just, I don't have concern about my children's character. I'm not concerned about it, not because I'm clueless. It's because I really know and trust. I trust. You were talking about trusting in Hashem, and the way I see it is also trusting in the Hashem that's within us and within our children. I know that they have Hashem within them, and that's who they really are. And by me embodying, knowing who they really are, first of all, I don't have to spend all that time making them be who I think they need to be because they already are. And by me seeing them as such and knowing that that's who they are, it actually impacts how they see themselves too. And so I don't need to, if a child is behaving a certain way, I don't need to get caught up in like all the fear that arises within. Oh my gosh, my kid is going to be who knows what when they get older? Like, are they going to be able to be in a relationship? Are they going to succeed at life? Whatever. I don't need to worry about it. And so now I've freed up my energy and my time to just connect and laugh, which is also supportive to their long term,
Right. And I
that's
just
what they
want
really need from us.
Yes, and I just want to add a small tidbit for anybody that's confused of what you said of, listening to the Hashem part in you and believing that your children have an Hashem part. You can relate to that as a higher power, and that's what step two is all about. Your higher power is there to support you and guide you, and you can make space to listen and hear what your higher power is actually telling it to you, and you can believe that your children also are guided by their higher power. So for anybody
Yes.
that's confused, and the amazing part is that what step three really does, like if you want to ask anyone, like what does step three create? If I actually make the decision to let go, and I actually make the decision to surrender, not only to let go of my situation, I can surrender and let go of people in my life, of the expectations I have of them. I can let go of situations. I can let go of my past or my future, of what I think I should be turning into, or where I think of
Yeah.
how much money I should have saved up by the end of the year, or what goals I have to accomplish. And by surrendering and letting go of all that, the number one thing you feel is relief. And the
Yes.
beauty
Yes. Yes.
of literally taking those heavy packages off my shoulder of like, this is not mine, and this is not mine, and this is not mine, of physically and emotionally feeling lighter is an unbelievable gift. It is
Yes.
unreal when you can pause and be like, pause. I have
Yeah.
no control over this. I can listen. And then we mentioned it in the past, live, and I don't know if you mentioned it, is that if it's hard to actually do it mentally in your brain, literally write it down and put it in a God box. This is
That's
not
really nice.
mine. This person, or how they're going to show up, or what time they're going to show up, or how they're going to feel, or other people's feelings, it's not mine. Because when it's mine, I make myself sick. When it's
Yeah.
mine, I feel pressure. But when I know it's not mine, there's a lightness. I can
Yeah.
breathe. I can find joy. I can find happiness. And this is what I always tell people. Like, if you study step one, two, and three, step one sounds so hopeless. Like, what the heck? You're telling me I'm stuck. I can't fix anything. I can't
Yeah.
control anything. Like, it's killing me. I feel like I'm dying, right? And step two tells me, like, okay, pause. Other people can help. And I'm still choking because, like, I don't want to ask for help. And I know best. And then step three is so hopeful of, like, it's not your department. Like, why are you even mixing in? And it's
Yeah.
an unbelievable way of living. And it literally creates so much freedom and relief and joy, and that is literally priceless because we act very differently under pressure and without
Mm-hmm.
pressure.
Yeah,
Um,
it's one of my favorite things to do for and with my clients is getting to the core of where the fears and anxieties are coming from, recognizing where, where they started, and and recreating them. And
yeah,
the relief that ensues is, you know what, like, we deserve for life to feel good. It's not
yeah,
meant to feel terrible. We deserve better, and I think that's part of that process is starting to recognize that we do deserve better, to know that
yeah.
we do deserve better.
And you know what? The words of step three, each word of this step is so important. And that's why I love working through literally every single word. But I'm going to repeat it, and I did mention it on the previous live because step two and step three are very intertwining. Step two is all about believing and trusting, and step three is actually the action to the believe and the trust. Because if you don't believe, you can't actually do it. So step three
Mm-hmm.
tells us is that we turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood Him. And what I was going to re-mention is sometimes some of us grow up knowing that God is scary and judgmental, and we fear and we're scared. And how does He know better? And He's going to punish me. So, how would I actually hand over stuff to Him? But if I
Mm-hmm.
reignite a new relationship of who my God of understanding is, who is He? Compassionate, loving, caring, supportive, then it's way easier for me to hand over stuff. So for anybody
Yeah.
that has a hard time because God is scary and God is this and God is that, there may be a time for you to reinvest of who God actually is. So that step three can come so much easier. Um, and
Yeah.
just to because step three is so much work, like letting go is so much work, and you could feel so stuck because it's exactly as step three says. I can make a decision and do nothing about it. Like, and it's real. And before we get to step four, step four tells you that if you haven't actually worked through step one, two, and three correctly, start it over before you hit step four because step four is an
Mm.
open heart surgery, and we can't go there until you can't let go of everything you'll discover. Um,
Yeah.
and it's so hard. And some practical ideas of what does letting go look to you? And if someone is so scared or it's so overwhelming, what would you recommend? What is something small they can take? What is something, because the book recommends different types that we can discuss on and on, but I'm curious to know from you, like, what is something practical, something small, not
Mm.
overwhelming? Because, handing over people to God is something huge. Handing over situations is something huge. What is something
That's
small and
really interesting.
tangible that I can
Yeah.
practice letting go without it taking all of me?
I'll share two small things that come to mind. One is just simply finding a compassionate individual that feels safe enough to speak to, and I'll explain why. That sometimes just being able to hear it from someone else to say, you can let go. It's okay. That sometimes that's already like, oh, right? Like, so that's one thing is like finding someone or a few people, a support, and that takes time. I understand it could take time to feel safe enough with people to share these kind of things with them. But again, there is some power in hearing from another compassionate, safe person that now, the second thing I want to offer is more from the somatic perspective, to start to be able to feel the sensation of letting go in our bodies. And so what I would say is like to actually even physically like hold on to something and then let your hand loosen and drop it with the intention of allowing the experience of letting go physically fill your being in a physical way. Now, this is a tiny little baby step, but we could be telling ourselves in our heads, I'm going to let go, I'm going to let go, but our whole body is still holding on because the body and the mind function at different paces and different ways. And so it's very helpful to start to like feel it in our bodies, is actually physically experience that release, you know?
Yes.
Um, two
Yeah.
little tiny ideas.
And
Yeah,
I
I get.
want to add one thing. There's so many ways, but one small thing for somebody that finds letting go so hard, and it could be for a lot of different reasons. It could be because control, it could be because of trauma, like who am I letting go to? You know, if I don't do it, nobody will do it. You know, when I let other people step in, they've always messed over. There could be a lot of trauma related of actually letting
Absolutely.
go.
Yeah,
Um, One helpful thing is prayer. Prayer comes in so handy, as in God, I'm having such a hard time with letting go of the expectation of my child being respectful in school or my child getting better marks. Please help me free myself from that expectation so that I can
yeah,
breathe again and I can see my child for who they are and the brilliance that they have, no matter if they come home with a 70 or a 97 in math. And prayer can be in so many ways. It can be writing it in your journal, it can be saying it can be a small prayer before bed, it could be a small prayer when you wake up. God, please help me, find peace and serenity and have an easy time letting go with what I shouldn't be carrying. Because
yeah,
adding things to my heart to carry just brings me down, and then I bring my family down with me, and I lose my spark and my joy and my light and my potential. And how much
yeah,
more can I shine and be a light to my family and my spouse and my nation and the people around me if I'm not carrying all those burdens? Um,
exactly.
Rivkie, I want to thank you for taking the time. Really,
Thank
I
you.
love those lives because I wish I could go on for hours, and I wish I
I
could,
know.
talk about step work like for so long, because every word can be taken apart and every word has so much in there. But for anyone that's interested, this is literally a glimpse into step three. You can always DM me and we can go into a conversation, and there's so much more. And I'm really just grateful that for your courage and your willingness and showing up and sharing your absolute wisdom with us.
Thank you for thinking of me. I was really honored. Really
Always,
appreciate it. And
always,
it's always
always.
nice chatting with you. And if you save this and you can invite me for a collaborator, I would love to put on my page too.
Awesome. I will try my very best, although sometimes there's a glitch
I
in the
know.
system.
You
Okay.
bet. I know.
For
Okay.
anyone that came on, thank you, people. I hope you enjoyed and have a lovely rest of your Wednesday.
Happy Hanukkah. Bye.